forward, as you can see, we've come across from Victor Harbour to Goolwa. Goolwa, an interesting little town down the bottom end of the Fleurieu Peninsula. Got going in the early 1850s and primarily was a paddle steamer river port. Very, very busy town. Commerce and shipping and so on, everything came down the river and went either onto Adelaide and out through Port Adelaide and so on. For a small town, it's pretty amazing. Between the 1850s and the early 1900s, they built something like 37, I think, was total paddle steamers and barges. So it's a town with a lot of maritime history down there. Well worth a look around. Some very interesting buildings, plenty of hotels and cafes and places to have a good look around. We're heading now out of Goolwa, and this next turn off on the left, you can see, will take you back to Adelaide's through meadows and another part of the Adelaide Hills. We're continuing on. We're going to take a slight detour across to Strath-Alban and go back to Adelaide that way. As I said, weekends, really busy roads down here, not only just for bikes but also cars, caravans and everything else. It's fairly well policed, and you'll see a lot of highway cruisers and speed traps. So if you're down this part of the hills, keep a check on your speed, because they will get you. Strath-Alban is the next port of call. Another one of these places, really busy on weekends, primarily set up around tourism. Everything from railway stations, old buildings, beautiful parklands, and over on High Street, where I pulled up for a coffee, got a really high concentration of antique stores and old car dealerships, and a lot of stuff to have a look around. And once again, it's another part of the Adelaide Hills that is pretty well a trip in itself. Rightio, just coming into Strath-Alban, another really interesting little town. Primarily it's a tourist town, and weekends, as I said before, it gets really busy. I'm just heading down Dawson Street here. It's a main commercial road in Strath-Alban, and takes you up a little bit further. You'll see there's a heap of bikes parked up out front of the Bean Cafe, pretty popular spot on weekends. Strath-Alban's in part of a loop that's pretty popular for bike riders. Coming out of the hills, Strath-Alban coffee, turn around, head back either by the freeway or back down through Mount Barker, Harndorf, which is the way I'm heading. Around here, a lot of parklands, historic buildings, good little city to have a little look around in. I'm heading home. Coming up here on the left hand side is an Aprilla agent and an old service station, pretty popular place for guys to pull up for coffee and refuel. I'm turning around here and coming up onto High Street. High Street, quite a few hotels that do a good lunch, really good bakery that I like, and if you've got the bride on board, there's a heap of antique and little novelty knick-knack shops in High Street, and you can while away half an hour easy just milling around the various shops. As you leave Strath-Alban, the road takes you out towards Mount Barker, but I'm turning left here and taking the Maccasville Road, which will take me down towards Mylor and bring me out near Harndorf. This is a great little stretch of bike riding road, one of my favourites in the hills. Once again, road's in really good condition. Does see quite a bit of traffic over the weekend, but as I said, well worth a turn off to go this way, and as you'll see, just a really good little road to open things up a bit, and fairly good bit of twisties between here and Macclesfield. Right, we're just coming into Macclesfield, another great little town, plenty of history, been around since the early 1850s as a farming town in the hills. From Macclesfield you can turn left and go from Meadows over to Kangarella and back in through the southern corridor into Adelaide. I'm continuing on and going over towards Mylor and Harndorf. Macclesfield, great little town. I've done it just for a day trip for lunch. Three Brothers Arms is in the main street. good old-fashioned pub, big open fire, good pub meals, and well worth a stop to have a look around. Once again, this part of the hills, we're in the middle of winter at the moment, so everything's looking pretty green, but most of the year and throughout the year this place looks pretty green and inviting, and just another good little road between Macclesfield to Milo. Macclesfield Road and taking a little road called River Road. You can continue on and go down through Stirling and pops you on to the freeway back into town. I like this little road. It takes you across to Harndorf, another tourist town, extremely busy on weekends, so if you want to sit in a little bit of traffic and queue up for a coffee somewhere, it's a good stop. But really interesting little town. At the end of River Road, turn right to head back into Harndorf. I'm turning left and just popping out on the edge of the freeway. From there it's just a short 10-minute ride down the freeway and you're back in town. Just as you're leaving Harndorf, you'll come across a roundabout before entering the freeway heading to town. On the right hand side the road points down to the Dun and across to Birdwood and the other side of the Adelaide Hills. On the right hand side just below this roundabout is a little place called Grumpy's. It's a beer and pizza place, been around for a long time. If you're into good home-brewed beer and a really good stone-cooked pizza, this is the place to go. Anyway, that's it for me.